Southeast Asia, when you look at this, market, we're looking at like 583 million people that live in this region, which including, Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and so on. And 400 million people are connected to the internet. And
Wow.
to your question, why Asia? Because this is kind of like an untapped opportunity about where the next, we call it in Google, the next billion users. The next billion users probably will not come from the US, and they
Right.
definitely would come from India and Southeast Asia.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel. Hello and welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Welcome Yuval Passov, Regional Partner Lead, managing Google's relationships with the biggest media agencies across Asia. Prior to his move to Singapore, he was leading the gaming team in Google Israel, working with the leading gaming companies in Europe and United States to develop their marketing strategy, including Playtika, Miniclip, Epic Games, Zynga, and many more. He is also the founder of Game On Asia, the leading podcast in Asia focusing on the mobile gaming ecosystem in Asia. In his free time, he volunteers as a mentor in Google for Startups' Southeast Asia Accelerator.
Yuval Passov, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders all the way from Singapore. Finally, I have somebody calling in from Singapore. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here, and thank you for waking up so early. It's 6:30 for you, right?
For this call, I'd wake up much earlier. I'm really excited to get to know you better and get to know your expertise in gaming and in marketing and obviously, you're leading the gaming team in Google Israel. You were working with some incredible companies, working with developing their marketing strategies in Europe and the US, like with Playtika, Miniclip, Epic Games. You're also the founder of Game On Asia, a leading podcast in Asia focused on the mobile gaming ecosystem. I have no idea what the mobile ecosystem for gaming is in Asia, so I'm excited to tackle into that. And today, your regional partner lead, managing Google's relationships with the biggest media agencies across Asia. Way too many things to talk about in the mere span of 20 minutes. So I'd like to dive straight in. When do you discover that you have a passion for gaming? How does that even come about?
So actually, I think that from a very young age, as we all discovered the early PCs, and back then we didn't have a lot of mobile games. So then I discovered initially all the different quests and so on. And I think that for a long time, I was really passionate about building games for kids and for more like educational things. But as I studied biomedical engineering, it was really hard for me to find the entry for the gaming ecosystem. But that's something that I managed to do after doing my MBA back in Israel, and actually been accepted to Google, where I started as an industry manager, and then we're leading the mobile gaming team. And when we say leading the mobile gaming team on Google, many people ask me if Google developed games. So I think that we tried in the past. That was not so successful. But most of the work that we're doing in Israel and across the world is more about helping with the marketing strategy and user acquisition for big gaming companies like Playtika, like Plarium, and so on. So this is where I discover kind of like behind the scenes of the gaming ecosystem.
And the transition then to Asia and to focus on the Asian ecosystem, how did that come about?
So after 5 years in Google in Israel, we were looking more as an adventure for the family, but also a place that we can expand my skills, and Asia looked like an amazing opportunity. And everything is before COVID. That's the whole world changed. but then we moved with my wife and two kids, and actually we expanded now with another kid. And Singapore, it's an amazing place to live in. I don't know if you've been in. Have you been in Singapore before?
Not yet.
No,
That's why I'm
not.
so excited.
Yeah, so Singapore is very similar to Israel in many ways. Similar like population. Actually, Israel built the whole army, intelligence units, and everything in Singapore, and it's super safe. And I think that one of the most exciting things that you can travel, and for Israelis is like you can travel in 1 hour to Thailand, to Bali, and to
Wow.
so many places. But in the same time, Southeast Asia, when you look at this, market, we're looking at like 583 million people that live in this region, which including, Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and so on. And 400 million people are connected to the internet. And
Wow.
to your question, why Asia? Because this is kind of like an untapped opportunity about where the next, we call it in Google, the next billion users. The next billion users probably will not come from the US, and they
Right.
definitely would come from India and Southeast Asia. So I think that for anyone that is interested in this market, there is a very interesting, research that we did together with Bain about the opportunities in the market, what happened after COVID. Thinking about like people that live in a village in Indonesia, that currently now are stuck in their house and cannot do anything, and they cannot travel. So their mobile phone, and that's another example of, developing countries that they skip the desktop, right? They immediately got their first mobile phone, which is a lot of the time smartphone, and the internet. Let's say in India, it's crazy. They pay like, less than $1 for, 5 GB or 10 GB,
Unbelievable.
and then and that this is like a great opportunity, and you see here a lot of innovation, a lot of startups are coming here. You started to see a few unicorns, but COVID specifically, people learn on the mobile phone, people do like all kind of like ordering and so on, that maybe in the Western world it will seem obvious, but here like everything is around that. So
Incredible.
that's why we are, we were like, I was specifically very excited about moving here. And I think that to your question specifically about gaming, it's also
Hmm.
it's something that it's hard to understand the numbers of gamers in Asia. Of course, you can think about China,
Hmm.
as the numbers, but the numbers that I just we just also published a research about that. It's 1.5 billion gamers in Asia, and that's not only China. And if you look at the global revenue of like global gaming revenue, almost 50% is coming from Asia,
Really?
and that's something that's So that's crazy, yeah.
Unbelievable. Tell me a little bit more about gaming as a vertical. It's I keep hearing the statistics that the final tournaments of League of Legends and those sorts of games way surpass those of the NBA finals, and this is obviously the next esports industry. But also I'm seeing a whole new discussion about the metaverse and the way that people are interacting with games, and the new generation of gamers that are so different from the way that I conceive it. What is happening to the gaming industry worldwide and in Asia that requires some deep analysis, or is not so trivial for the average person, that when I think of gaming, I think of Icy Tower and Minecraft?
Yeah, so I think that first of all, gaming, as everyone knows, during the last, I can say, almost 2 years of COVID, it just like boomed. We see that cross,
Yeah.
globally. You see how much marketing budget are increasing while other verticals are decreasing. So gaming, people are at home. They're looking for the social interactions, and that's something that is so strong in Asia. People are looking for this, opportunities to meet with other people, and through competitive gaming and the ability to meet other players, they are able to to do it within the COVID space. So I think that what you discuss about like esports tournaments, what about metaverse, and it's more about ability for you, wherever you are, to meet new people and to interact with them. And I think that, some of my colleagues in Israel said that, what happening in China now in terms of gaming, it's kind of like the future of a lot of the gaming companies are looking at the West in terms of, let's say, influencers. So, for example, one of the interviews that I have this podcast that I focus, on the gaming ecosystem in Asia that you mentioned, and they have influencers, right? Influencers is like the YouTube influencers that they have millions of people following them and so on. But what they did in China, they took it to the next level. So they figure out what the audience like, what they kind of make them more engaged. And they created, according to all the data points, they created like a virtual influencer. So it's not a real person. It's a person that they know that their audience will be engaged with. And they just spend millions of dollars with, TV campaigns, with, digital campaigns just to attract these users. And it's something that it's hard for us to understand, that this is where you feel, where I feel old. But it's works, and probably we will see that probably in the West in a few years. So I think that, it's super exciting, especially like you see in India, for example. They play, Candy Crush or Fruit Ninja, but on a competitive level, right? And again, it's competition, it's social, and they actually bet money, so I could play with you on Fruit Ninja, and whoever wins will get like, the 20 cents or 5 cents and so on. It's like, it's a unicorn already. It's called Mobile Premier League. And you see it more and more and more, and countries like Vietnam, that they have, they're the one that created the Flappy Birds, like I don't know if you remember, there was like this kind of birds that coming from a one person, developer in Vietnam that was a little bit shocked after his success. And then it just expanded, and you see a whole ecosystem of developers want to be, the Flappy Bird developer.
Unbelievable.
So as you can see, I'm very passionate about this. I feel it's super easy to create a game, but in the same time, when you look at like global challenges, it's so hard to, after you finish developing the game, you put it in the App Store or the Play Store. How do you discover that, right? There is millions of games, and that's where you need to have like a unique marketing strategy, and how to attract the users.
Right. And so, still talking about gaming, what are some, consumer behavior shifts beyond what you mentioned with the influencers that you're observing from the East that will make its way to the West? And I'm looking back at the sentence that you said about, looking at some parts of Asia as catalysts for showing what the future may hold for Western countries as well, in terms of consumer behavior, gaming, cultural shifts. What are we seeing in the world of gaming that we can expect in the next few years to slowly make its way?
So I think that what you see now, that more and more Chinese companies are becoming like the top in the top letterboards across the world. So if in the past we thought, if it's like Asian, characters, that it will not work in the West, it's actually working, and it's working really well. And actually, because they are able to, thinking about like, they have gaming studios in Asia that just for one game, they have, I don't know, 600, 700 developers, and just for one game. So a lot of the things that they are doing, in other verticals, they know how to do it in gaming, and they know how to engage the users. I think that the other thing is, I just had recently a call with the person that leads the gaming team in Korea in Google, and one of the things that he mentioned, it's all the thing around webtoons. Probably, I don't know if you heard about that, web and toon, TOON.
No.
So that's kind of like a comics that we know, but what's happening that in Korea, it's huge. It's kind of like a comics. It's an app that you read comics on an app. and and in Korea it's huge, but they manage not to stay in the borders of Korea. It's actually going out, and like K-pop in Korea and like Korean food, they manage to do a lot of this like export, and you will see that they're going to be like a Netflix series, and they're going to take a lot of the content and do games out of that. So I think that the world, the globalization of the world is just making it easier for a lot of the trends to just be without borders, and that's something to just see and make sure that you follow that, because otherwise we just stay behind that, and very quickly we'll feel that all the top grossing games in the West will be from Asia.
Right.
So that's
And
just two examples from Korea and China.
now, focusing just a little bit about the marketing side of it, which is fascinating on its own. You're mentioning that sure, today the barrier or the friction to creating games is reduced dramatically, but the bigger challenge that is presented now that you have a proliferation of games, how do you actually get yours to be noticeable? What are some what really impacts whether a game, let's say we're looking at 10 games that are developed in extremely high quality, high content, have all the virality effects that you'd expect. What would be some marketing indicators for whether one would succeed, whether one would not?
So I think that when you said virality, it's very hard now to get virality, or
Okay.
what used to be, something that people would expect. Okay, I'll just put that. I'll do a few campaigns, and people will just start to talk about that. Virality also, almost non-existent. Only like in rare cases that it happened. I think that the other thing that in the past, developers were asking for featuring in the Play Store. So, when you get to the Play Store, you see like the big game. This is, Zynga launched the game and so on. But I think that, a lot of the thing that we are seeing now is with all the changes around privacy and cookies and the operating system 14.5 of Apple, that you need to have something unique. But in the same time, when you say unique, it can be like an IP. If you have like, I don't know, Spider-Man, as a character in your game, but that's something that, smaller developers, it's really hard for them because they don't have the money to actually invest in IP. But IP is definitely something that will lower the cost for acquisition of new player and will help you to get out there. A lot of the other thing is to partner with bigger gaming companies, and that's all the publishing deals that you see, that some company will work with Zynga, will work with other company, and then they will help them kind of like scale the game, because it's a lot of the time the money that they recruit, the money that they raise, the focus is for user acquisition, because now you need to have like a few $1 million in order for you to have enough money to scale the game, globally. But kind of like the basic, everything, when an investor or anyone that is looking at your game, they will look at the retention metrics. So how many of the users after they installed what we call day one, how many actually stayed in the game? So it means that your game is not just,
that makes sense.
A lot of the people will not open the game after they install it. Some of the people will open that in the day one, and then you also look at day 7, and there is benchmark in the industry. So I think that this is the first thing before you do any marketing campaigns. You need to make sure that the engagement level, the content, whatever you are doing is working well.
Really, a similar idea as a product market fit for any other vertical, right? The idea that you've actually found a fit for your product in the market, and that makes a lot of sense. And I also want to make sure that I have a little bit of time to dig deep into who you are as a person. Now, before gaming, before all that stuff, take me back to your childhood. What really fascinates you as a kid? Growing up, what really sparks your curiosity?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that inspired me as a kid is actually when I was 12. I traveled to Australia to meet my family, and I actually stayed there and studied for 3 months together with my cousins. and I think that was kind of like a shift for me in like, how small is Israel, and how different is the world, because I was studying in an international school. I was able to meet people from not just Australia, from different places around the world, and that's coming back. My English got much better, even just 3 months, but also the ability to understand how global is the world. So that's, I think that it was kind of like a big shift for me.
Very, very cool. And if you look today at your work today, in Singapore, wherever it is, and where you gain your inspiration on a daily basis, where is that derived from?
Again, can you repeat that?
Where do you derive today's inspiration from? So when you go about your day to day right now, what really gets you going in the day to day?
Yeah, so I think that for me, it's definitely the kids. And I think that specifically COVID just got this idea of, doesn't matter what you have, doesn't matter what you achieve. The moment that you have your kids next to you, they're healthy, they make you laugh, they make you smile, and the small happiness exercise of the gratitude list of doing like three every day, writing three things that you are most gratitude and thankful for. I just look at for the last 6 months, and you see the kids are just there in everything, and I think that that's kind of like something that I wish that it will stay for a long time, but you need to have the balance. But definitely,
Right.
they are the one that motivates me.
Very, very cool. And what are a few words that you would use to describe yourself?
So I think will be super friendly, open, and funny.
Very, very cool. Yuval, thank you very, very much. This was great. I loved these last 20 minutes. I learned a lot, and it was great getting to know you. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for hosting me, and again
Of
for waking
course.
so early.
Of course. Thank you.